Welcome. In a previous year and another session, I introduced him as, I think to Omar Abdullah. I think I introduced him as Madurai Veeran. So welcome again, Vanakkam.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So there are many subjects we can discuss. Given your background, I wanted to sort of first get your, let's say, take on how things are transitioning in the technology area and the implications for the economy, the state and all is known. But do you have, I'm sure you would have thought about it, A as a IT minister and then B as your background in working across the world as a finance minister. What should be, first I want to know, the one thing that I find striking is the states which have the largest number of IT enterprises and employees, Karnataka and Telangana. I haven't seen or heard too much concern about what's happening to the IT enterprises. That last year only, in the first 9 months only, net addition to IT services was 17 jobs. And these are NASSCOM figures, so it's like, and this year seemed to be again, we see it reflected in the stock market valuations of companies. There's talk about agentics, targeting even the gig economy in that sense. So how come we haven't heard anything from the state governments? And I'm sure there is some thought you put to it. What should our approach be? And I'm not saying just Tamil Nadu, but also in a national way. How do we cross this seemingly, what we call the printing press movement or the electricity movement that has come to the knowledge economy?
Well, let me start first by saying, I think in terms of number of employees, actually Tamil Nadu might be number one, if not number two. Because unlike Telangana and Bangalore and Karnataka, our IT services industry is distributed around the state. First, we are a large state by population, larger than those two. And second, I think 32 of our 38 districts export software.
Yeah.
So from a headcount perspective, plus we graduate about 20% of India's STEM graduates a year. We're exporting talent, sadly, but by sheer scale, I would say we're fairly large. Second, I've had the luxury or the experience in my lifetime of going, when I went to the United States in 1987 as a graduate student, it was the beginning of the inception of email, let alone the internet. And so from then, in my lifetime, in my adult lifetime, we have seen the transition all the way through many revolutions, all the way to the age of AI now. At every point, there has been a fear that progress in information technology will eliminate white-collar jobs. And at every point, it has turned out, at least till now, that the technology has been mostly augmentative rather than replacement level of human being. Of course, pushing the boundary ever further. Now we have seen, and the proximate example comes to me is manufacturing. I used to be a consultant when I was in the US. And what I saw in, let's say, automobile factories, then to now, is completely like day and night. It used to be, and literally day and night in the sense, it used to be well-lit factories with hundreds of workers. And now the automation has become so ubiquitous that there are dark factories which don't need lights because the robots are sensing. And there's very few workers. So this is going in a particular progression, but it's not a 1 day, 1 week, 1 year. It's probably a generation. It's probably like 20 years.
It's not linear either.
Yeah, and I would say in this age, though, we must, these numbers reflect a great reality. After decades of huge growth in the services industry, now we're seeing that plateau. At some point, we'll probably start to see that come down. But that's only if you look at the majors. If you look at the ancillary services that are being provided for the data passing, tagging, annotating, for the models to learn, huge growth in those jobs, right? They're completely different type of jobs, but those are companies that are not the usual kind of majors. They are companies that are affiliated with the autonomous vehicle industry or with the medical imaging industry or other places where AI, let's say law, accounting, where AI is making a deep impact. But to get the models to learn requires probably lots and lots of hours of labor over probably 10 years. That's how much data needs to be passed and annotated. Of course, AI is automating that to some extent as well. But in the scheme of things, the market speaks for itself. I'll give you the reverse statistic of what you just told me, which is the employment headcount. When we took office in 2021, there were 2,300 and something registered startups in the state of Tamil Nadu. Today, there are more than 13,000, less than 5 years, right? So people have figured out that this traditional, I will study some engineering at some college and go and be a programmer or software developer somewhere, career is not happening. And partly by necessity, partly by circumstance, partly by government policy, we have set up all these programs to help encourage startups, not just in Chennai, in Coimbatore, in Madurai, in Trichy, in Salem, and including funding for them. We are seeing a surge in startups. Now, Tamil Nadu has the luxury of two things. One, as I say, 20% of the graduates. Two, that we have a very urbanized state. We are 50% urbanized. And so we have agglomerations of people. And as you know, the great luxury of cities, first and foremost, is that they're relatively efficient labor markets. So people start to see opportunity. And a lot of these startups that I have seen are actually solving local problems with local innovation, whether it's in health, in urban quality of life, in environmental management, in energy conservation. These are all actually real life problems getting real life solutions. So I think that is a healthy trend.
So I get a point. I mean, we may not see immediate retrenchment, but there will be retrenchment, and it may not necessarily be in IT services itself. It could be happen. I have my chartered accountant is actually now helping a startup produce a whole set of things, and I'm more worried about who will file my returns, whereas she told me that you should be worried about what will happen to all the chartered accountants. I said, okay, point taken, but currently I'm worried about who's filing my returns. So she goes every week to Bangalore to help some chartered accountant, some techie who has come from US, husband and wife, and they are setting up a startup. So we tend to sort of, and this is my observation generally about life, but for technology this makes sense, is that we overestimate the immediate effect and underestimate the long-term effect. And whether it is technology, education, or wherever we go. So my sense is that there is going to be retrenchment, we agree. There is going to be displacement. How are governments going to deal with this kind of thing? And this brings me to the Tamil Nadu question. I mean, I'll split it in two questions. How do you think governments will deal with it? And the second question is, Tamil Nadu as a state has something like 10 lakh crores of debt. So how is Tamil Nadu equipped to be this? I mean, there is one story about Tamil Nadu that is absolutely brilliant, and I keep telling everybody about it. How is it that every major project goes to Tamil Nadu? There must be something that they do right, which I tell in every state that I visit. The other aspect of it is the debt and the welfare programs and the schemes. And this we have discussed earlier also, but at the cost of annoying you, let me say the freebie culture. So how do we align these two? First, what the government needs, whichever part you want to align.
Well, I think.
Just for the audience, I mean, why I'm asking the question about the Tamil Nadu finances and government is that the end of the day, the gainers and losers that technology produces have to be compensated by the state. And does the state have the economic growth and the revenues to do this?
Yeah, I'll take the first question because it's directly in my portfolio. The second is a bit dangerous for ministers to talk about other ministers' portfolios. But anyway,
that hasn't stopped you earlier.
I learned the hard way not to do it. But since you ask, I'll touch on it lightly. But the first question is that we want to make sure that we equip as many people as possible for the new age. So that's basically, quickly speaking, three things. One, 100% broadband access for the latest video instruction and the latest ability to use the models and whatever is publicly available. So we're going to finish our BharatNet equivalent project here called TanfiNet and offer 100 Mbps fiber to the home in every village at either 199 or 299 plans. So that is first universal, equitable access to information, because the internet basically has enough information to give you a PhD.
I was going to interrupt you and ask you whether, it could be a poll promise free Wi-Fi.
No, free Wi-Fi is already all over the place, actually. It's a bit late. It's high speed, like 100 Mbps on the fiber, that is the big deal now. Free Wi-Fi, we already have at least 3,000 hotspots in Chennai, many in Madurai. We have free Wi-Fi in bus stands, in public places. That's not a big deal. In fact, 5G speeds have gotten so high that they're probably as good or better than free Wi-Fi from a common router. Anyway, the second is that the CM has announced, and we've just finished the delivery of 9,85,000 laptops or something out of the 10 lakh that was committed. And these are not the old laptops of relatively low capability. These are very high-end laptops. If you go and try it in the market today, it'll be about 50,000 rupees with Perplexity subscription built in, with Copilot built in, AI-enabled high-end processing laptops for college graduating students, and we'll work our way down in the next 2 years, so that from 2 years from now, it'll come as a first year to every entering college student. They will get a laptop that is enabled with the latest AI models on it, at least some of the latest AI models. The third, I think, is to address education, and partly in my department, the ICT Academy, partly through the Non-Mudalvan scheme, which is the school finishing and job like optimizing program, partly through school education departments, curriculum resetting with Google and Microsoft as partners, starting at middle school. We have started to adapt the curriculum to the age of AI, to the age of models, to the age of machine learning. And these are the preliminary steps. In my view, there's still a bunch of stuff left to go. And because it's about to be the election manifesto, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we'll probably make some announcements around further deepening this shifting of the curriculum all the way down to the elementary schools, which was spoken about in the previous session, as well as some centers of excellence with some serious compute capability to provide a shared platform. So these are all how we adapt.
So these are people who are coming into the job market, into the economy.
Yeah, but we are saying, I've already worked backwards, right? I'm saying recent college graduates to current college students, to high school and middle school students, we've already kind of started working downwards. It needs to go all the way down, because in 20 years, it'll be a completely different ball game. So we need to go down to the elementary schools. That's a big deal, because it's not just the students, you have to change the training of the teachers, right? That takes a while to get that done. Yeah.
Those who are already employed, who are at the 25 to 40 TVK voting constituency, how are they?
I don't see that much disruption. As I say, there are lots of new jobs being created. I give you one example. The company called iMerit, CEO's Tamil lady, long-term US citizen, was a senior executive, one of the doyens of the Indian community in the Bay Area. She has contracts for annotating and digitalizing visual images for the autonomous vehicles. I met her in 24. She said she would set up a company in a branch in Tamil Nadu for me. Set one up in Coimbatore in 25, March or April. I went and opened it. It was about 200 jobs. It's now almost 400 jobs. So jobs are growing in different areas. Some are coming. Even now, the large majors have not laid off net. They're flat. So the transformation of jobs will happen slower than we think. And it's not that immediate, and there are new jobs being created, particularly for the next, at least for the foreseeable future, let's say 5 years. Politicians think in terms of 5 years. There will be so many new jobs for the sake of adapting our data to AI, adapting our systems to AI, that there will be net, not a bad outcome. Going back to the finances, I will simply say that, as I've always said, you cannot look at debt as an absolute number. You can look at it as a percentage of GSDP. Like you see the extent of leverage in a company, debt to equity or debt to capital structure. In that sense, we are no worse off today than we were 5 years ago. The real decay in Tamil Nadu's finances came between 2014 and 2021. After Ms. Jayalalitha went to jail. When she went to jail, roughly, the debt to GDP was about 16%, and the interest to revenue was about 11%. By the time we inherited as government, the debt to GDP was already 26, 27%. and the interest revenue was back because I say those were the levels of 2003. They were brought down from 2003 to 14. They were taken back up by 2021. And so the interest revenue was back to 20%. We are no worse off today than we were. If you say, am I much better off? The answer is no. But we are no worse off today. On the flip side, we have achieved the kind of social programs and the kind of industrial advancement that led to 11.19% real growth last year, according to the Government of India statistics, which no other state came close. So somewhere you have to balance it out. I'm sure there was a possibility that you could have constrained the financing in such a way that your ratios improved. But in the end, the outcome is what's important. If you get the kind of growth and the jobs and the development that you're getting, you have not made it worse. You have not made it much better, but it's not much worse.
So this is a parallel question. Actually, this applies to the central government also. I mean, union government, there is no such thing as central government. So the union government, it said like the advanced GDP figures is some 7.6%, whatever.
Yeah, but let's make a distinction. The union government's debt to GDP has gotten horrendously worse. I'm saying I have not gotten worse. You can't compare the same.
No.
I'm saying I'm staying at 26%. They've gone from 50-something% to 70-something%. The amount of borrowing that has happened in this union government's regime is unprecedented and quite troubling. So don't put us both in the same bucket. That's my only point. Yeah.
No, I mean, they have a whole chapter and book on alibis on why it's gone up and all. Let's not go there. I am saying there's a construct that we face in India, which is that 80 crore people are being given free ration. 50 crore people get free medical aid. Around 20 crore people are covered by different other schemes, whether it's the farmer scheme or whatever. And despite the 7+ growth in 7+% growth in 3 years or whatever, every election there is an employment joblessness question. Now, Tamil Nadu has had the largest number of investments. As we last time spoke, that you're now competing with the likes of Vietnam and Indonesia to get projects here. There are GCCs opening. I think you have the largest number of GCCs or the second largest number?
Yeah, not the largest, but probably the growth rate is the highest.
Largest.
Yeah.
And so you're competing with Pune in terms of startup numbers. And yet you see across Tamil Nadu and across all coverage, the first main grievance of everybody is jobs, and which is what the new entrant to the political field is also talking about. Where is the truth lie?
Look, again, I would say if you're comparing us relative to either the past or relative to others, I'd say we're better off. The unemployment ratios are not worse here. In fact, so compared to other parts of India, substantially better. And relative to even 5 years ago, we're doing better.
I want an honest answer.
Yeah.
Okay. How representative are these numbers, the unemployment and employment number? Are they sort of capturing the distress?
Look, all data in India is subject to kind of question, right? I'm not, in my previous portfolio, I had also the economics and statistics department as part of my portfolio. And to be honest, the methods and practices and policies that are used are not that great. In fact, ironically, in the IT ministry, we have now created some AI-based tools to help improve the quality of the data that is being gathered in economics and statistics. Because as you know, this data is fed to the Government of India, and then the Government of India does the calculation. There's not like a separate union government data system, every state. And the data systems, my own guess, mine is less than ideal compared to where I came from Wall Street. Other states are probably as bad or worse. So all this data is subject to a bit of, uncertainty. But our baseline is that you look at the longitudinal impact. The absolute numbers are what they are. But you look over time, is it getting better or worse? Those are usually more accurate. It's hard for you to be saying it's getting better when it's getting worse. That level of data integrity is there.
Like the stock market guys use this 200-day average and 500-day average.
No,
What, for us, it will be what, 2 years, 3 years average?
No, I'm not even saying that. I'm saying that if the indicators are saying things are getting better, they're probably getting better. All the absolute values may or may not be right. But their relative movement in the direction that the movement is, that is probably right because it's the same errors in every year, every quarter, every month. So on that basis, I'm saying, I'm not sure there's a direct correlation yet between whether you bring down the debt to GDP ratio substantively and you increase the employment or not. I'm also very clear that not all free schemes can be equated the same way. About 8 years ago, I gave this long treatise. What is the difference between insurance kind of freebie schemes for health and for avoiding going into debt, nutrition and capital investment into human capital that is also considered freebies as opposed to just free handouts, as opposed, you can have a 1-hour discussion on what kind of social spending or welfare spending is considered wasteful and not accretive to growth and just debt inducing and interest increasing, and what is actually accounting wise considered revenue spending but is actually capex because you're investing in human beings. Like perfect example is free food at school. That is a revenue expense for me. Nobody can argue that it is not useful.
Infrastructure.
It's basically, right? So these are nuanced questions. I would say, on balance, Tamil Nadu has got it right in the sense that we are able to do both. We are able to do a lot of welfare and get a lot of growth. Something must be going well. Other places do a lot of welfare but are not showing the growth. Some places do growth, like Gujarat, perfect example, fantastic growth. But the quality of life of the citizens is very poor in health, in multidimensional poverty, in education, in any statistic you take. They're not even in the same league as Tamil Nadu, right? Then what is the consequence of that? Their fisc is better. I agree. Their debt to GDP ratios, their interest revenue ratios are better than ours. But as far as I'm concerned, the first quality of a public servant should be empathy, should be compassion, should be care about the life of the average citizen. If to improve that, I have to have a worse debt to GDP ratio within the limits prescribed by the Finance Commission and the RBI, and I have the growth to match so that eventually my revenues will catch up, this is a better way for me.
I heard the Chief Minister Stalin at some conference sort of reeling off a page full of statistics on in almost similar vein. And about growth, about education attainments and stuff like that. Now we are very close to the announcement of the election, and obviously you will contest. I'm not sort of saying whether you will win or not, but and you're one of the most articulate faces in the party, which I don't know whether that description should get you into trouble, but you are one of the most articulate faces. If you were to sum up why the DMK is going to win, I'm not going to think, you're not going to obviously say we'll be hung or we'll lose or whatever. You are going to say we will win. So why would we win when the polling suggests that you have just a bare lead over the women? This is some private polling that I've had access to. So it says that you have just a bare lead over the women voters. You are trailing in the 25 to 40 area, and there is considerable concern about the law and order, the women voter, all those stuff, whatever. Some of that is tangible, some of that is perceptional. So if you were to say, present like an elevator pitch on why DMK has been good for the state and why DMK will win, what would you say?
First, I'll say that everybody's polling data is different. My data is not showing what yours is showing. So, let's leave that aside. Let's ask a more basic question. Why should we be re-elected? And I'll say again, we're all limited by our experiences, our data. I have 10 years of experience as a legislator, and I've probably analyzed 20 or 25 years worth of data because I was living in other places doing other things before that. In the 10 years that I've been in elected office and in the data that I've analyzed, it is beyond any argument or discussion that in these last 5 years, we have done more things more thoughtfully for more people than ever before. Like every single scheme, if you ask me, breakfast for children, I can talk for an hour about how many different versions of it we thought about before we came to this execution, where in my city, we are providing breakfast at the cost of 12 rupees per child per day. There is almost no government scheme in the history of India that is more cost effective and impactful than that. I can talk about the number of databases we collected for us to be able to do the kind of distribution schemes that we have done, which the Supreme Court Chief Justice said, universal is bad, but targeted is good. We do better targeting than almost anybody because back when I was in finance, we started this database collection and integration. So you pick any scheme, free bus rides. How should we implement it in such a way that the transport corporations that are already in the red will not try to have bad attitudes when they have to pick up women for free, and yet we basically get our outcome. So we go to a zero ticket and count, and we subsidize. I'm saying any scheme you pick, and both in the number of schemes and the amount of thought and analysis and design that has gone into it, I can genuinely say that in my 25 year data analysis or my 10 years in public life, I have never seen anything close to it. On that basis, I hope the people will decide that we should continue because we do good work, we're thoughtful people, we're responsible people, and we provide our political philosophy of social justice, 100% inclusion, and upliftment of all sections of society as opposed to, just a few.
Thank you. That was time's up, and that was a very succinct presentation. There's one question that, somewhere, sometime you should find time to sort of align these two questions. Prabhu Chawla and I had done this show. What is the magic, or as I told him, what is the avial that cooks in Tamil Nadu, which makes it possible for the state to grow, to have all the schemes, and yet, so if the DMK comes back to power of this, and this is across governments that this has happened. There has been a consensus on economic development and there is a consensus on welfare. So sometime you might be able to sort of put together a PhD on this.
I have a contract to write a book. It's long delayed. So one day I'll get it done. Yeah.
There you are. Thank you very much.
Thank you.